I want to bring you back to India in 1887 when a guy with a very curious name for me, at least, because my pronunciation is terrible. So please, my friends from India, correct me in the comments. But a guy called Srinivasa Ramanujan, who was born in extremely poverty, he had something different. Since the beginning, he had a big obsession with numbers. And with only one book about mathematics, he started making some very impressive reflections about numbers, about math. But the conditions for this guy to develop himself, to develop the genius that was inside him, it was actually quite hard. And he was also quite frustrated with that as a young person with all those talents, to be explored without having the conditions. So what he did is that in 1913 he sends a letter to the University of Cambridge to a professor called G. 8 Hardy, and Hardy sees the very specific talent on the person who was writing this letter. So he invites Ramanujan to go to Cambridge, and he arrived there in 1914. And this is where his life starts to change completely. He is now the same guy, the same person. He still had the same DNA, but he is now in another environment. An environment that would give him the resources to explore all the things he wanted to explore, or for all the discoveries that could come. And of course, to an environment where he is going to have to feel challenged to move things forward. So it's not only the opportunities, but also the sense of having a challenge in front of him. What happened, of course, is that he had all the pleasure of the opportunities, but also he was in a different time of Earth, or in this case, a different moment for England, and he suffered a lot of racism. And it was a little bit hard for him to connect, to stay connected with the community around him, to make new friends, and it was also super cold. What happens is in only 5 years, he started to create a revolution in modern mathematics. He made some impressive discoveries. His name is still remembered in this area with a very strong contribution he made for the field when he was alive and when he was in Cambridge. But at the same time, it had a price for him. And this very incredible intellectual environment was, as I said, also very cold and very hard for him to stay connected, not only connected, physically, but also connected emotionally to the things that he was doing. And this environment that made him flourish was also going to kill him. He turned his life back to India when he was only 32, and he ended up dying of tuberculosis. As I said, he had the same DNA. But did you know that the brain of this guy was not already the same because of some reasons, right? Well, this is exactly what I want to explore to you, because there is this incredible article on BBC Future, and it's called How Where You Grow Up Affects Your Personality. And the data we have available on this one is quite impressive. It's actually one of those that made you stop and think a little bit. It had its effect on me. I started to think a little bit on the environment that I grew up and the environment I am right now, the differences between growing up in Brazil and being now working in Sweden. And why I mentioned that Ramanujan had the same DNA, but maybe not the same brain after a while? Well, because this article it brings in a very impressive study that was conducted over 50 years. So it's a long data set, a lot of data around pairs of twins. I will repeat, pairs of twins studied over 50 years. And many of those, of course, not living together, not growing the same way or the same environment or the same country sometimes. And what was impressive to see is that how much the environment changed completely their brains, not only in their behavior, but also changed their brains physically. um, what 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 happened, and the study shows, is that genetics, or your DNA, would explain about 50% of your personality, of who you are. Okay. So it has, of course, a big impact, but this is not that big if you think a little bit more on everything that we have impacting us daily. And that was the case with the environment. The studies show that the environment where we grew up, the place where we grew up, is actually responsible for the another 50%. So it's quite impressive because some brain scans in those brains show that those physical differences, they are real. So people who grew up, for example, in a specific part of North America would have a completely different path of this twin brother or sister who grew up for example, in Norway. And the reasons for that are because those different environments would make this person have a different behavior, to also develop different habits, and to also see life in a different way. You know, if you grow up in a country that is, it promotes you to be a very strong workaholic, you are going to transform yourself over time on that kind of professional. And when you move to another country, which is what I did, I moved to another country after my career was already progressing. Your brain will start to change also physically. So the study shows that it's not only growing up over time, like in your childhood, but if you right now decide to move to a new country, your brain will start to change. So when I moved from Brazil to Sweden, and now over some years here, I can confirm, based on the data from this study and the confirmations from other studies related to the brain, that the brain path that I have right now and the organic brain that I have is not the same than it was when I left Brazil. And it's not only about my behavior, back to that, it's also about the way I build my thinking. And why this is so relevant when you think about career and your professional and personal development? Well, basically, if you reflect for a while, you maybe will think that you have a few talent, or more than one. I assume, because you maybe are good on one specific thing, and then you have this ability, let's say, with communication and other related to music, and then you are also very good on writing. But the environment where you are working do not promote you to be exposed to opportunity and to work where you're going to develop even more those skills. And therefore, you are locked with those talents inside of you. So the main reflection that I start to think to myself here is actually on when you work for a long time, many years in the same company, you are going to have a specific way of working that is super connected to that kind of culture that you have been working for so long. And it is the same with leadership. You develop a sense of leadership, the style of management that is connected to the style of that this company had. And then you move to a new place, to a new company, and you're going to realize that the way that worked for you for so many years is not working anymore in this new place where you are trying to influence people. And that made me think a lot also on this, you know people who are so proud about their skills and abilities to lead over time because they had results inside one company. But unfortunately, outside of the company walls, without their badge, they cannot have or cannot develop people in the same way because they are so attached to one single culture. It can be good depending on the type of talent and career that you are developing, but it can also be challenge and a risk. So the reflection here that it's crucial that we made, and I hope you are thinking on that after we finish this conversation, is that your job has a big impact on who you are and how you are going to develop yourself as a leader or a specialist in specific technology. Because back to your talents, maybe you are great on your verbal communication. You are great on that, but you are not having the chance to explore that. So you could be living a completely different life, or at least a completely different professional life, just because you were more exposed to those kind of things that are related to your talent, to the type of person that you are. And it is the same, even though I know it is hard to change. And maybe you are thinking that I'm crazy just to reflect on that because you cannot influence that much on the country where you're born. But basically, we can say that many people who were born in Brazil with a specific talent that would be more valued in another country are maybe locked for the same reasons. Of course, there are hope here because we see that if the brain keep adapting itself over the time and even changing physically, anytime that we made a change in our career to a new job, to being promoted to a new area, working with different people, we create new ways of thinking. And that is great. I believe that that is one of the main things we should bring with us from this reflection today, because if you can keep developing your brain the same in the best way possible over time, it means that you could change your opinion about things. It means that you can develop even more your work style, your management style, your leadership style, and you do not need to be locked into one single framework, one single way of working. So that is the reflection to have here, and I want to invite you to do some kind of audit on your life. Just reflect how much of the professional you are today and the kind of person you are today is actually just a mirror of the environment that you grew up, and how much moving to another place, if that is something that is going to happen to you or that you're considering to move to another state in your country or move to another country or move to another company, how much that can influence what you do and how happy you are with the things that you are doing.